Today on The Report, we discuss upcoming fall events in Orange County, plus an attack on the San Francisco Chinese Consulate.
The death of one of the last survivors of the Tulsa Race Massacre.
Plus an earthquake in Afghanistan and the war in Israel. The Report starts now.
I'm Lena Naranjo.
I'm Noah Sakadas.
And I'm Jasmine Alvarez. Don't forget to follow us on our Titan TV Instagram at Titan TV CSUF to keep in touch with us and view our latest content.
In an unprecedented turn of events, Israel has fallen under attack by the Palestinian militant group Hamas, infiltrating numerous communities along the Gaza-Israel border and attacking major military bases. The Hamas fighters proceeded to engage in several atrocities in nearby towns, farms, and a music festival. Nearly 900 Israelis have been slaughtered. Among the casualties, women and children. Many have also been taken as hostages in response. Israel has formally declared war on, quote, terrorism, end quote. Hamas is a militant organization that currently governs over the Gaza Strip. They are described as, quote, committed to the destruction of Israel, end quote, and have been listed as a, quote, terrorist group, end quote, by the UK, among others. In the past, Hamas militants have engaged with Israel, who, with support from Egypt, held a blockade along the Strip to sequester and force a halt on attacks by Hamas. In retaliation for the attacks, the Israeli Defense Force is conducting carpet bombings from the air on Palestinian residential communities with large civilian populations, known for their identifiable Hamas hideouts. Gaza Palestinians claim Israel's sanctions and their airstrikes of vastly populated sections, quote, amount to collective punishment, end quote. Since the counterstrike, Hamas has threatened to execute Israeli hostages and broadcast the killings if Israel continues to bomb civilian homes in Gaza without warning. Current reports show casualties number some 700 Palestinians killed by Israel's airstrikes. Palestine is also assembling its forces along the Israeli border and is bracing for a ground assault. 2023 has been the deadliest year on record for Palestinians in the West Bank and East Jerusalem. Peace talks between Israelis and Palestinians have been ongoing since the 1990s, but fell apart during the 2014 Gaza conflict. Since then, attempts to make peace have been ineffective. The death toll currently rests at 1,600 on both sides.
An earthquake struck in western Afghanistan Saturday, October 7, leaving over 2,000 people dead and multiple buildings destroyed. The 6.3 magnitude earthquake came a year after a 5.9 earthquake occurred in the eastern Paktika and coast regions surrounding Pakistan. The national director at World Vision Afghanistan, Tamdri De Silva, stated the following about the earthquake. Quote, the situation is worse than we imagine, with people in devastated villages still desperately trying to rescue survivors from under the rubble with their bare hands, end quote. Due to the impact of the earthquake, the United Nations International Children's Emergency Fund distributed 10,000 hygiene packs, 5,000 family kits, 1,500 sets of blankets and clothes, and 1,000 tarpaulins, along with essential items to help those affected by the earthquake.
A car rammed into the Chinese Consulate building in San Francisco last Monday, October 9th. The perpetrator's vehicle, a blue Honda sedan, crashed into the lobby of the consulate's visa office, where about 20 people were in the waiting area. Everyone quickly evacuated, and police confirmed the suspect and opened fire. Sergeant Catherine Winters of the San Francisco Police Department said in a news conference following the incident that the suspect was later transferred to a local hospital and pronounced dead. The police will work with the investigators from the U.S. State Department and the Chinese Consulate to investigate the incident further. The Chinese Consulate stated in a statement, quote, our embassy severely commends this violent attack and reserves the right to pursue responsibilities related to the incident, end quote.
Hughes Van Ellis, one of the last 3 survivors of the Tulsa Race Massacre, has passed away at the age of 102. The Tulsa, Oklahoma Race Massacre occurred over a century ago. in the summer of 1921 when an angry white mob attacked Black Americans in a section of Tulsa that was known as, quote, Black Wall Street, end quote. Prior to the massacre, Black-owned businesses and families thrived in the Greenwood district of Tulsa. Racial tensions in the city were high that year over a lynching of a Black man that was suspected to take place. In the attack, many African Americans were killed, along with the destruction of over 1,200 homes, nearly 60 businesses, and several churches. 6-month-old Van Ellis and his family successfully fled the mob, but their flourishing community was destroyed. In July, an Oklahoma judge dismissed a lawsuit that sought reparations on behalf of Van Ellis, along with his older sister, Viola Fletcher, and Leslie Benningfield, Randall the massacre's last known survivors. An appeal has been filed in response. The family's publicist, Mocha Ochoa, said of Van Ellis that, quote, he was pure joy personified, end quote. Although Van Ellis's family lost everything during the massacre, he, quote, still believed in the promise of his country and fought for it in World War II, end quote. Van Ellis is survived by his daughters and extended family.
This October, Orange County and neighboring cities are hosting a whirlwind of fun fall events. In Laguna Hills, Pumpkin City's Pumpkin Patch will be open all October with free admission Mondays through Fridays before 4 o'clock. Santa Ana's Discovery Cube is hosting a Pumpkin Palooza all month long. There, visitors can enjoy a family-friendly dance party and festival. The fun never stops at OC's annual Not Scary Farm, a nighttime event full of scares, mazes, and roller coasters throughout the month of October. Keep your eyes peeled for single-day events such as the Anaheim Fall Events and Halloween Parade on October 28th, and the Cops and Goblins Spooktacular happening in the Buena Park Civic Center on October 31st. And if you're looking for an early trick-or-treat event, the Fullerton Police Department is holding their annual trunk-or-treat event on the 27th. Another option includes the Roar Festival and traditional Korean music and art festivals at Fullerton's downtown plaza on the same date, or Dia de los Muertos Festival at the Monktacular Cultural Center on the 29th. Enjoy the fall festivities and stay safe, everyone. Okay, so now we're going to be moving on to the Banter.
Fall events, OC.
Yes.
Congratulations, fantastic.
My favorite time of the year.
Me too.
What are you guys most excited about for the fall time?
I am honestly super excited for the cooler weather we're having.
Yes.
You know, it's finally those winter winds are coming in slowly, and then all the amusement parks are changing and becoming Halloween themed. Oogie Boogie Bash and Halloween Horror Nights. Very exciting stuff. And then, you know, pumpkin spice from Starbucks.
Ooh, Starbucks. Oh, yes.
Exactly, yes.
The chai latte is so good. I love it.
Yes, highly recommend
Pumpkin
it.
chai latte, so good.
One of my favorites for sure. It's gonna be actually the first time that I've tried pumpkin spice.
Really?
And I've enjoyed it. It's been really good.
It's so good.
So
yeah.
yummy.
I have to get it like when it's out. I have to get it like almost every day. It's so bad.
Absolutely. I'm there with you. What was I gonna say? Have any of you guys been to any of the fun events for this fall so far? I know that you brought up the Oogie Boogie, and also I know that there's always horror nights happening at Universal Studios, among a bunch of other amusement parks. Have any of you guys made any time to go out there, or looking forward to any of them just yet?
I mean, oh, go ahead.
No, you go first.
As of this year, I haven't yet, but I'm really looking forward to Not Scary Farm. I've only been to Universal Horror Nights, which that one was actually really fun. So fingers crossed, hopefully I can go to Knott's this year. And of course, I'm looking forward to the pumpkin patches as well, because those are always so fun to go to. So
I agree, yeah.
It's been a pretty busy month for me, but I'm actually really looking forward to the Roar Festival that we mentioned happening in downtown Fullerton. I mean, I looked up the website, and it talked about how it's supposed to be a dynamic celebration of Korean culture, music, arts, and cuisine. And, you know, who doesn't love a good Korean festival? I'm going to be honest.
Yes, absolutely, where you can immerse yourself into the culture and the arts. Totally agree with you there. And I think it's so cool. There's so many events happening throughout the community right now, where that includes pumpkin patches where you can pick your own pumpkin. So if you still have time to carve into that pumpkin if you need to. There's a lot of events as well as dancing they had mentioned. So a lot of neat stuff. I believe there was also a beer festival that's going to be occurring that's pretty local too for those of you that are of age and looking for something more within your age range. But there's definitely a lot of things for families, for college students. So it looks like a very fun weekend is definitely coming up. This month is packed with a lot of great events.
Indeed. It's going to be a really fun month.
Super excited. Alrighty, moving on to our next topic. So the Tulsa Race Massacre. Did you guys know about the massacre prior to us covering the story, or?
Well, as a big history fan myself, I like to pride myself on being knowledgeable of American history per se. But to summarize events as far as I'm aware, there was originally in Tulsa an interaction between a white woman and a black man in an elevator, which concluded with her running out of the elevator screaming. We don't know what she said officially to police officers, but a clerk working at a store nearby overheard that it was a rape of some kind. That was never substantiated, and there was a lack of evidence. So eventually the man was arrested, but several months later his charges were dropped. And when his charges were dropped, it started a bunch of race riots in the white communities where they started marching into the black areas. And then to protect their neighborhood, and a group of armed black assailants came forth towards the white mob and created some kind of violent interaction, which resulted in the death of 10 white people and 2 black people. And this was like what started the entire race riots. The white community went and armed themselves, so the black community retreated into Greenwood, and they built fortifications. They had snipers set up so that if anybody came down the roads, they would pick them off. And from there, it just collapsed into this massive, huge race riot, and it was fell totally out of control, and many prominent buildings in the Greenwood area were burned in the process, including Black Wall Street.
Wow, that's so sad. I didn't actually know about that background information. What about you, Jasmine?
Yeah, thank you so much for educating us and giving us a little bit more background context as well. I think going back to what you had asked, I had heard about it, but it was so good to be able to refresh and look back and take a look at what was going on, and really the narrative of the story and things that were mentioned was kind of like what you were bringing up with it kind of spiraled from one story from a clerk not verifying. And I think that's what it really comes down to, making sure that we are verifying during thorough research, and if we're going to put anything out in the media, being aware and cautious of what we're going to put out, because it could incite potentially these mobs. And we definitely don't see that as common now, I would say, but definitely something to note. We want to make sure that we're citing our sources. We're looking at where is this coming from? Can we verify this? Is this information accurate?
Thankfully, I hope our journalistic integrity has improved in the last 100 years. But do you guys think there should be reparations for the survivors of the Tulsa Race Massacre?
I think there should be. I did some research, and I know attorneys had filed a lawsuit back in 2020 seeking justice for the survivors, and unfortunately it wasn't successful. So I really hope for them to follow through again, just so because it needs to show equal representation. Nobody should be treated that way. So I think they do deserve that.
I think definitely they deserve as well representation, and I think it's interesting because I think when we bring these things to light and when we have them being represented and it going back into the court, I think it's good because it brings it to light. More people are going to be looking into this case, and I think history, in order for it not to be repeated, it needs to be brought to light, and we need to learn from these mistakes that we've made. And there do need to be reparations made for the families, for the victims. Right. In order for healing, I believe, to continue to
totally agree.
I agree.
Right. Alrighty, moving on to the Chinese consulate. What do you guys think about that attack? Do you guys think it was intentional, not intentional? What do you guys think?
I think it was on purpose. It's a difficult subject to discuss on the show, but in the past, last semester on the report, we discussed how the FBI shut down a very large Chinese spy ring that was in Chinatown, Manhattan, with direct connections to the Chinese government. What they were doing is they were granting American documents and visas to Chinese Americans in exchange for information. And the Chinese government has had a very large hand in almost every Chinese American community, and they have for the past few years. And the people are terrified of them, I would have to say. Ever since the Chinese Civil War, right after World War II, we've had an influx of hundreds of thousands of Chinese and Taiwanese citizens coming to America for a better life to escape the Chinese Communist Party. And it's just very sad. They're coming here for asylum, and now it seems like they're running the communities. And I know that sounds like it's generalizing, but if you look up any of the articles that discuss kind of the events that are going around with these spy rings active in the Chinese American communities, it's very scary how much influence they have over the Chinese communities right now.
It's scary too, since there's so many departments within the building, so there's no way to know exactly what he was trying to target. And like you had said, there's been attacks in the past, towards the building itself. So it is, scary. It's interesting. It makes me wonder, why does it keep happening? What's going on? And it makes me also question if it has to do also a little bit with less policing being available in San Francisco right now. I know we've heard of the crime rates going up, and we've heard of it draws to my attention, and it does make me wonder if it has to do with some of the defunding of the police that's occurred in San Francisco. Could that be a possibility as to why we've seen a rise in attacks on buildings and just in general in the San Francisco area? But it is scary. It is tough.
I want to touch on that point
absolutely.
You made about the San Francisco's kind of issue with policing and how there seems to be like an increasing crime rate. Do you think that that's going to continue to deteriorate the city, or do you think that's going to improve in the future?
At this point in time, the way that things have been escalating, I've only seen it get worse. And it really comes down to voters getting out there. And it is tough, because I know that voters are trying to make a point across by defunding the police, but you do have to look at the pros and cons. This is one of the cons that happens with the defunding of the police and having less of them out on the streets. There's going to be less security, less guarding, less protection. And because of that, I think we've seen tourism decline also, because it is simply not safe anymore. A lot of people are just fleeing. Mass people are leaving the city because it's not safe. They are having their vehicles constantly broken into. So as an American, I feel we have that right, freedom to feel protected and freedom to feel like we feel safe. And unfortunately, I don't believe our San Franciscans are feeling that right now. So it is tough, but that's a great question.
Yeah, I would agree with what you guys said. I personally think it was intentional as well. I know we all have like these questions of why it keeps happening, and I was seeing that officials are hoping to hold a town meeting within 10 days to discuss further about the situation. So hopefully we can get some more insight on that, because I'm very confused on why this keeps happening. I feel like we all have the same questions,
Let's move on to the earthquake in Afghanistan. What was your initial reaction to the news of the earthquake, first off?
I was surprised, really surprised. I personally never heard of it. Was it 6.1, right? 6.1
like that,
earthquake in Afghanistan happened before. And it's unfortunate, because Afghanistan's already been dealing with economic conflict. And it's really sad to see, when I was reading through the stories, that people were, it sucks because they don't have the same resources as we do here in the United States. So I was reading, I was seeing an article that people were desperately trying to rescue survivors under the rubble with their bare hands. So it's just super sad to see. I mean, I saw there was also only one hospital open. So it's very, very sad to see that.
Yeah, I think it was definitely terrifying to see. It's sad because they definitely think they weren't expecting it. They were still trying to recover just from their last earthquake. So it's been tough, but it's been a wake-up call. I feel also as California residents, we're always hearing, oh, the big one's coming, but it hasn't hit us just yet. So I think we definitely have better infrastructure in place to handle these kinds of situations, especially if there are bigger if there are bigger earthquakes happening here, if there are any predicted. However, it is a wake-up call. It does make me draw into question, okay, are we being safe? Do we have enough things for our protection? Do we have food and water and shelter just in case we need to stay in place, things of that nature? But what are your takes on that, Noah?
Well, that's interesting that you bring up how we can better prepare for California earthquakes because, you know, we've spent our entire lives preparing for an earthquake of that scale. You know, we had drills in school up to when we were babies, up all the way up to now in college. And we're talking about an area of the world where some of them don't even have basic essentials like water and a decent toilet. You know, they have holes in, some of these communities have holes in the ground, you know. And it's sad that obviously they're not going to be ready for situations like this, and as a result, the chaos and the death toll is going to be worse for them. The disaster is going to be much worse than in an area like California, obviously, where we've been preparing for such a disaster all our lives. It's just so tragic and heartbreaking. But did the impact of the earthquake itself surprise both of you?
It did. After seeing the pictures and the articles I was reading, it's super sad, like we were saying, really unfortunate to see. I think, like we were saying, we're very fortunate that we haven't had, or not fortunate, but like you said, we need to prepare for the big one, like Jasmine was mentioning. And just seeing this is kind of like, oh my gosh, like I feel, at least for myself, like personally, I feel like I haven't prepared as much. Like, you know, we need the basic essentials, water, first aid kit, shelter, all that stuff. So seeing these pictures really kind of was very, very shocking and sad, very sad. So, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It was so jarring, like you brought up, it was just to see all of the pictures, see what they went through, the devastation. It was truly shocking. And, you know, like you said, we've been prepping for this our whole lives. You know, we've been anticipating the big one, and we have better infrastructure for it. You know, we're not a developing country or anything of that sort. So it is tough. It does make me so sad, and that's why I think I was so shocked, because we don't expect as much devastation here as we do see over there. So when you see it over there, you're like, wow, oh my gosh, I didn't expect, you know, so much devastation. But yeah, definitely a wake-up call. Definitely, it's time for us to, if you aren't ready, get ready, just in case, be prepared. Better safe than sorry. And definitely going to be keeping the people who are affected by this earthquake in my thoughts.
And with that, that's all we have time for today. Have a good week, everyone.
And stay tuned for more news, views, and info.
We'll see you next time on The Report.